Hello and welcome to Creative Sewing. I'm Aideen Cross. I'm delighted you can join me again for one of our Made with Love tutorials as part of the Healthy Ireland and Kildare County Council programme. Now this month, of course, it's January and we have our new beginnings, and in our new beginnings, of course, we have the little St. Brigid cross, going to do it in a patchwork and with the different shades of green. Of course, St. Brigid's Day is the 1st of February, and being from Kildare, Brigid's cross is synonymous with Kildare, and certainly we all remember making St. Brigid's crosses in school with the wreaths, and it's something traditional people do every year. And this would be something we can do a little bit different this year, and maybe do the patchwork. Not only can you can make one for yourself, but it might be nice to do one for a neighbour or friend too as well. It would be lovely. Now in your pack then you would have received all your fabric that you need. It's here, and your patterns then as well for cutting out. I have the main pattern there, and then all the little pieces then from there, all with alphabetically done as well, and the same coinciding with the fabrics and different shades of green. We're getting started on the St. Brigid's cross there. We've two papers there, one now with the full outline of it, and then the other with small pattern pieces. We'll start with the bigger one here of the full outline, and literally if we look at the green box that's on the outside, so that's the one we're going to cut now, to cut the velvet and going to cut the backing as well, okay? And that's the size we need, so one of each, okay? And that will be fabric A and fabric B then cut out of that. So with our paper scissors, then we'll just cut along the large green box. Okay. So I have to cut out there, that's like that. And then we're looking to see, we have them marked here with B, and with A then on the other one, then the velvet then as well. If you want, you can cut them out together or singly, and then we'll try and keep them as square and as straight then on it with the straight grain. So we need to pin those on in the corners there. Cutting all around the edge. Now that's that just done. So we'll just take off the pins there and just leave that over to one side now for a minute. So we're back to this one here where we have all our different pieces then on the little cross, okay? So they're all lettered, and they're showing you here then exactly where the pieces are. So I'm going to start off with the little center piece, okay? So for the little center pieces there, if you look at the center piece here, we need the C, okay, and we need the D, okay? So the little pieces are in orange, yellow and purple there then as well. So anything with C on it, okay? So C, C, C and C. Okay, now we also have C up here, which is a little small piece as well, so but that's in pink. So we'll just leave that one over to one side, then we won't cut that one just for a minute, okay? So we're looking to go from this one, and this one, and then D then in the center then, okay? So we can cut those all around. So that's the D. Now, so that's the mold, so that's all you should have left there then, okay, for now. So we're looking then onto our pieces of fabric here that we have, and we're looking for the C. So C is this here, that's shiny fabric. So we need one of each of these, okay. So we'll start down here in the corner and try and put it in the corner, because we'll have other little C to cut out as well, so we just want to make space for them all. So pinning it on. Okay, so D is on that colour then. Okay, so we have to put the D down in that corner over there. Okay, so it's a little tricky just trying to keep your mind on what colours, and they're all marked there as well. So try not to cut off your C or your D until you're finished, kind of thing, so you'll know exactly which one it is. But that's this. Now there are fabric scissors again, cutting. Okay, let's actually cut two of this one actually, so I'll just cut it again. Right, so that's that cut out, and then we have our little center piece in D as well. Okay, so we'll start making that up now, okay? So taking off all your pins, If you have a look at the pattern there, I have little arrows with 1, 2, 3 and 4, and that's to show you exactly what's sewn first. So what we need to sew first is the C and D here. So it's the small little orange one, okay, which is this one here, okay, joined on to the side of D, which is the square, okay, and DD, and then the little orange one then as well, and we leave that down the side here. So we need to join that on. So by joining it on, lay it on the side and the right side's up, and then fold it or flip it over, and then we'll be literally sewing down along there. So we can put a pin in it, and again, of course, a centimetre seam allowance. So if you want to get your ruler, or just to, you can chalk in, say, a centimetre seam allowance on that to know where it is, or if you want to just check it on your machine and see exactly where a centimetre lands, okay, that should be good as well, indication of the seam allowance. So 2 stitches and a back stitch. Yeah. And so that's your piece done, D and C. So that's number 1 there, number 1 written there. Okay, so the next one is number 2. So if you want, we can press open that, okay, and get ready then for stitching on then the C at the bottom. Okay, so one of these pieces then is C that goes onto the end, but we'll kind of press open our little seam first, okay? So we just put a bit of steam on it there as well. Okay, so just press open the piece, back down to check again, and then you need to put your C at the very bottom. So C at the very bottom, again, lay it down on the very bottom like that, and then in order to stitch across there, you have to flip it over 2 right sides together, and then immediately put a pin in it then, so you know which side it goes. Again, a centimetre seam allowance all along there. You can mark it if you want, chalk it in a centimetre. Okay, so that's that done, and back stitch at the end as well. So that's that piece on the end there again. Okay, so you have your D, C, C, so we're working our way around. Okay, so again, if you want to press open that, a bit of steam. Okay, so that's that piece there. So 1, 2, and we're on number 3. So it's not the other C now, joined onto the side. So lay that down. It's handy just to lay it back down so you know where you're going. Join it on the side. Again, put it on where you want to put it on there, and then flip it over 2 right sides together. Okay. And back stitch at the end. Okay. So that's your other piece. So we only have one more piece then left to do on that. Okay, so again, going to press open the seam, and that should do it. Okay, so back down there, and the last one then is the C, then the largest of the C's, and that goes on the end. So put it on there where you can see where you're putting it, the right side's up, and then folding it back down. Okay, and again putting a pin in it. So up on your machine then, for just sewing it there with your seam, 1 centimetre seam allowance on, back stitch to finish, cutting off your threads. Okay, so that's it there, all finished. So again, we have to do another little bit of a press. So open out your seam again. Okay, so that's it. That's your little square in the centre, okay, with your piece on the top. Okay, so we're going to do the little pieces on the outside, the little legs of the cross then as well, the little arms on it, and we'll just leave those over to one side because we don't want to get them confused with what we've done already. Okay, so we'll just leave that over there, and we'll bring back and cut out these pieces. Now, so I'm going to give you an option for these as well, right? We have our long piece here, D and E, okay, which is your D and E here. And you can join them together and then add on your C at the end, a little piece at the end, okay? Now, another option, if you didn't want to join all those pieces together, if you want to do a quicker version, this is your quicker version, literally all joined together. If you wanted to use one piece of fabric, whatever it is, and cut 4 of these. So with your paper scissors then, we can cut out. Okay, so cutting out the D and C on that, okay, and we're finding then those fabrics then, of course, then with the C is the piece for the little C is the piece for the ends there, okay, and it says cut 4, so we have 4 of those to cut. So if you want, you can fold it over and cut 4 if So that's 4 of those. And then we're looking for, we have to cut 4 of E and 4 of D. Here's our D's, okay? So hopefully we'll get 4 out of that, I'm sure we will. So as again, if you want to cut, fold over and put it on. Okay. Okay, so that's 4 of the D then cut, and we have 4 of E to cut then as well, okay? So there's plenty of this one. Okay, so now that's them all done. Lay them out, D and E and C on the top, facing up. Okay, so we're going to make each one of these up. So first thing we do is, again, if you look at your picture, it says, you know, number 1 there, we join D and E together, okay, and together like that, okay, and then we move on then to joining on the C on the end, okay. So D and E together, and so put them down side by side, and then folding them over again, putting a pin on, and your centimetre seam allowance there on that, okay. So that's your pieces there, okay. So if you want to open out your seam on that by pressing it, okay, so that's that one done, and then we'll finish it off, we'll put the C on the end of it. So there's your C on the end, and again, putting it down, that's where you want it. So flipping it over then, and putting a pin on it, okay, and then centimetre seam allowance again, and that's it. So that's it there, done. And again, opening up your seam and over to the iron then, just to give it a little. Okay. So that's one of the arms done. Just checking every time before you put the end piece on. So make sure line up your 2 pieces, flip one over on top of the other, okay, and then we're putting our pin in and stitching down the centimetre seam. Okay, and the last press then. Now just checking then so it lines up right, and then we have our small piece at the end, the C, okay, flipped back down, and then put your pin on, okay. Now, so that's our last piece then, just let me press that. That's our 4 pieces done there, okay, that we have done for the arms of the cross up. Now we need to mark the corners of this, okay, that just shows us where that we need to stitch and where we're not to stitch. So if you can get a ruler and just mark in a centimetre seam allowance all around that, okay. Your 1 centimetre seam allowance, just so on the wrong side. So let's start with this one here, okay. So we have this one here to add on, okay, so we add it on like so, okay, right up to the end, lined up with the edge, and we can flip it over, okay, flip it over, lined up with the edge, and putting a pin on this part here, okay, and we get a choke. So we don't need to go any more than that either. So we can actually just put a little pin there so we'll know where to start. Okay, so we're starting in, we're sewing from here to here, but we're leaving off the ends. I don't want the ends stitched because we have to be able to turn those back in, okay, and tuck them back in. So if we had them stitched, we wouldn't be able to do that. So literally we're just stitching from here to about, actually I'll just move that out to the edge as well, to the centimetre where we need to stitch as well. So between there and there, that's where we need to stitch, and that's where we stitch on them all, leaving your centimetre seam allowance on it, and in the centimetre as well. Okay, just show it to you now. So that's it stitched there. It's difficult to see the stitching that I've done, but it's literally only across that seam there, and you have your 2 pieces then not stitched at the edges, okay? So that's that piece on, as I say, and the little piece then are gaping at the side there, the centimetre. So what you need to do then is your next piece then. So you have your next arm, which is on this side, okay, so you're putting it down there, and you can see exactly where you need to go. So at this stage, this one here can get lined up, okay? So you can line it up with the piece that's, with the seam that's there. So if you can line those up like this, okay, that you have them exact, okay? Putting a pin in it, okay? Rolling it back just to double check that you have a good seam there. And again, just measure in your centimetre there from the sides there and from the other side there, and you can just put 2 pins in it, and you can just check from the other side that it should coincide with that side as well, okay? So check pinning in a centimetre from either side, just so that's the part you're not going to stitch, okay? And again, it's on that line there we already had done on that side, just double check. So we're stitching across there with our seam, 1 centimetre seam allowance again. Again, that's that part done. Say lining up your little edge, your little seam in the center, and then you're leaving out the wings. So the next one then is this one down here. Again, you're lining up your seams, okay, this seam and that seam. So line them up like that first, flip them over, and then just make sure that they do line up, rolling back the piece of material on the top, and then pinching it with your hand before putting a pin in it. Backstitch beginning, backstitch at the end before cutting off your thread, okay? So again, that's your piece then lined up, okay? So we only have one more left to do. So we have one more to line up and to do on this side, okay? So again, lining up your pieces and lining up your seams, folding it back out on top of each other, 2 right sides together, and just double checking by rolling back the top of it, okay? Putting a pin in. Okay, so that's that last one done, lined up and all done. Okay, so that's you're nearly there now. Press out these seams first, okay? So we're pressing out these little seams that we're after doing, okay? And by that we're actually making the little, turning in the hem, the little box on the inside as well, okay? So over to the ironing board, okay? And what you're doing is opening out the seam of the little legs that you're after putting on, ironing them, and as you're doing that, you're folding in the centres of your little square, little block box in the centre. Okay, so up on the ironing board there. So that's literally what I'm doing, folding it all in, trying to make a square, but you have to continue around the whole way around. So opening up your seam first and then folding in the sides. And folding in the sides of the square. So as we have done, it looks something like that. You're getting a little bit more finished look on it now. And just pin your corners. Alright, maybe put your pin sticking out so we'll be able to take it out then at the end. So with the centre done there, okay, as you can see, we'll be folding in the sides of these into the centre. Okay, so it's nearly in half, just into the centre and into the centre, okay? And, you know, that should, the way they're cut, they should be exactly then a centimetre thick then the far side, but you can juggle them around a little bit when you get to the far side then, just to make sure that they are even as well. So folding in your centimetre then. Now you needn't bother with the ends, folding in the ends, because the ends will get sewn in at the end. So it's only along here, either side, only along either side of the little arms that you need to do. Forget about the ends of the arms, okay? And folding into the centre. Okay. Alright. So that's literally it, all folded in, right? Now if you want to pin it and just get it perfected a little bit more, be slightly, just to straighten it up here and there, just to keep it right. It wouldn't be any harm just to put a few pins in it and literally have your pins sticking out so you can actually have them going the opposite way, so you can actually pull them out then when you're stitching. So, but we're nearly there. We have most of the work done now. The rest then should fall into place. Okay. Again, if you wanted to do another little press on it when it's at that stage, even with your pins, sometimes I don't mind giving the pins a little iron as well. Just to flatten the whole thing out and get it ready again and square it up. Okay, so what we're going to do now is actually put that on top of our velvet. Our velvet is our softer fabric. Actually, you do it on the right side. Fold it in half, and on the right side, then just put your little bit of chalk where the half mark goes, half that way, and then turn it again, half and half until you have 4 little pointers done out. Okay, with chalk. All right, in the corners. And if you lay that down, okay, they should be your marker for the edge, not for the center, for the edge of those little arms. So the edge of the pointer there will come to the edge of that one, okay, and you can put a pin in it, and then that one should line up to the edge of this one, okay, because they're slightly offset. If you remember, they're coming down offset up the center to make that St. Brigid's cross. So literally that's it. And if you want to use some of those pins that you have used already, that you have there, repin them and pin them down into your fabric now, your corners there especially, that we had done initially. And that's as far as we are now, and then just a little top stitch with a straight stitch, okay? And just literally stitching along the edge all the way around, and then we'll go back and we'll do the center again, you know. So literally just can you look at what I have done there, okay, and it's just around the edges, okay, and just keeping it nice, slow and steady. And it is quite thick, so I think you'll want to take out your pins as you go along, okay. Yeah, so just around the edge, so you're onto your square, and I'm onto my square there now, coming down along my second arm, okay. Onto the square again, just one stitch onto the square and along the edge of the square and down along my so that's all that's stitched on there now, okay. So that's it all stitched on there now. So I like to actually go around. I only have gone around the edges, so just to define the square in the center, I'll go back and I'll actually just go over that as well, okay. So yeah, so that's your square done in the center there now as well. Okay, so that's it. It's all done there now. So I do think probably the best thing to do is we need to measure out and chalk and stitch the ends as well. So it'll give us some indication exactly what we need, because we need a centimetre there just to make sure. Mine's just a little bit long on one side and short there. It must have been pulled over a little bit. So in order just to get it right, I'm just going to get you a centimetre then of the little number C there in the end, just to chalk that there out. Stitch those now on the right side here. So when we have the stitching on the right side, then we'll know that's where we need to stitch when we're actually putting the 2 pieces together, okay? So that's it. So I've just stitched it all around again. My cross was over a little bit, so it's just trying to redirect kind of what I need. I need a centimetre of the little arms on the end, so just chalking those in on that side and going around it where it needs to be. And then of course I know exactly where I'm going then, because I have my stitches come right through. That's where I need to stitch, okay. So what we need to do now is actually cut our little bits of ribbon, say 10 centimetres long, okay, and we can cut 3 of those, okay. Actually pin them on now, so you can make any of them the top. I suppose I'll just make this the top. So loop them down like that, and then we'll pin them down along the side of where that stitching is that you're only have to do, right down just near the side of it. Not too close, but just close enough that, and not too close that you're going to catch it when you stitch it on. Okay, so fold them over, put them in, and then of course then we'll find the center then, fold it over in half, just to make sure. Yeah, actually the center is of course the center on the edge here, because the crosses are offset them, so that's the center there on the top part. Okay, so those 3 in there like that, and have them all in. Now we need to have a little bit of wadding, so I have a little bit of wadding just to give it a little bit of body, so we're going to put that on as well. Okay, and we're going to stitch that all around again. Okay, now that's all around the edges, and then we just need to trim up the little bit of wadding that's on that there. That's skirts. Okay, so that's that part there done. So we're ready now then to put our backing on. So we can pin that on, and actually we'll pin it from this side because we're going to be sewing from this side. Now remember, we have to leave a little opening to turn it. Find out where your loops are and then leave your little opening here. Leave your opening on the bottom here, so somewhere in there. So a little opening then, starting there, working your way around and finishing there on that side. Okay. So following your line, not to forget then to stop at the little marker then with a little back stitch then as well. Okay. So taking out all your pins, and then remembering then to miter your corners by cutting your corners at an angle. Okay, because we want to get rid of the bulk as well. That's your piece all done. Just ready to turn in the right way now. Okay. And use the little loops to pull them out. Okay. That's it. And then to poke out your corners then as well. So close your scissors and just to poke out your corners just ever so slightly. So that's it now, all done. And what we need to do now is just give it a little bit of press, and we need to tuck up the end of that there as well. I'll just do a little bit of hand sewing on that. Okay, so we'll press it on the wrong side now because it is velvet, so we kind of don't want to be pressing it on the right side and squashing the pile. Right, so that's your little St. Brigid's cross then done. Doubling up your thread, putting a knot on, and we just need to do a little slip stitch. So just having your knot, try and get your knot on the inside. Okay, tucking it in, and slip tiny little stitches then from one side to the next, just slipping them along if you can, slithering them along just so you don't see them, rather than going round and round. Just kind of slip stitch, so you're slipping from one side, okay, slipping it along from one side onto the next. Okay, so a little bit from one side and a little bit from another. So a little slip stitch, as I say, all the way along, a little bit from one side and then a little bit from the other side. Okay, till you get your hole all done up, and then of course a little back stitch, then find a little spot at the back just to do a couple of little back stitches, and that's your little St. Brigid's cross done then. It's all done nice and neatly. Okay, and again it probably need a good bit of a pressing, maybe just another bit of press, but it does looks very, very pretty. And just you'll have your little bit of timber then to go on the top, and then your little roping then as well. Okay, so 2 or 3, I think there's 3 in that now, little pieces of the roping then, and we can tie it on at the ends and then thread it through these little parts at the top. It should be nice to tie it up. And what I was doing was tie the knot on the other side as well. Okay, trim off the excess, and then what I was doing was just to bring it down a little bit, was bringing the two together and tying a knot on that there as well. Okay, so that's your little St. Brigid's cross all done and ready for hanging up. So that's the little St. Brigid's cross all done now, and certainly looks very well indeed. And I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I know it's a little bit tricky and a little bit tedious with the colours nearly all the same shade and stuff like that, but certainly just follow the pattern, and if there's any problems certainly you can contact me as well. Certainly it'd be lovely as a gift as well to go away to a friend. Okay, look out for the next tutorials next month as well. All right, take care, bye bye.